To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.
Hello my dear students, welcome to today's lesson. Today I am going to discuss with you all General Certificate of Education, that is GCE Ordinary Level Examination. So GCE O-Level Examination paper. I have already discussed the paper 1 with you all. So I am going to discuss paper 2 today. Now you are familiar with the format. Before also I have discussed this with you. Now before I discuss the format and before you look at my discussion, it is better if you all have a copy of this paper. You can either download it from the Department of Education website, or else under this video there is a link provided and you can download the paper from that link. So here, if you look at the paper, the format, you can see students at the top, it says all rights are reserved by the Department of Education, Sri Lanka. So that is by the examinations department. Then on the right hand top corner, you can see 34 is the subject number for science. E corresponds to English medium and 2, it is paper 2. So that is the number there. Again it says General Certificate of Education Ordinary Level Examination 2021, which was held in 2022. Then Science 2 is the second paper and the time duration is 3 hours. So you all know all the questions that need to be answered in paper 2 has to be answered within these 3 hours. And in addition to that, they provide 10 minutes of reading time. You are familiar with that. So if you look at the next, the box, you can see additional reading time 10 minutes. What I told you all. Use additional reading time to go through the question paper, select the questions you will answer and decide which of them you will prioritize. So you all know, in paper 2 there is part A, which contains 4 questions which are compulsory. They have to be answered on the question paper itself in the space provided. And part B contains 5 questions starting from question number 5 up to question number 9. Out of those, you need to select 3 questions and answer them. So use this reading time, the 10 minutes, to go through the questions and select what questions you are going to answer. And also you need to give priority. Say if you might know the answers to question number 9 completely, then you can answer that question first. Then maybe you can answer question number 6. That also you might know the answer. Maybe for 1 or 2 parts you may not be sure, but you can answer that as the second question. Then if it is question number 7 that you want to answer, but you are not sure about some of the answers, then you can answer it at the end. So like that you can give priority. Once you start a certain question, you have to complete all the parts in the booklet provided. So you have to write the question number, the parts, and the subparts of the question. You have to write the number properly and then you need to write the answer. Now if we look at the instructions, before the instructions you need to write the index number. Then the instruction you can see here, students. First one, write your answer in neat handwriting. Now the examiner has to read and understand what you have written. Then only you will get the full mark. If your handwriting is not possible to read, if the examiner is unable to read your handwriting, then they can't give marks. So it has to be in neat handwriting. Answer the 4 questions in part A in the space provided. So here you can see number 4 is highlighted bold and part A or bold. So that means in part A there are 4 questions that has to be answered in the space provided. Of the 5 questions in part B, answer 3 questions only. So you have to answer 3 questions only from part B. After answering, tie part A and the answer script of part B together and hand over. So you have to tie those because part A you are going to answer on in the paper itself in the space provided. Part B you are going to answer in the booklet. So you have to tie them together and give it. And also you all know there are instructions given in the booklet as well. You have to read that and then only you have to start writing the answers. So always read the instructions carefully, students. That is very important. Then if you look at the questions, this is a format of the paper that is given here. So you can have an idea. Initially it is part A. There is the first question. You all know first question is a biosphere related question. Usually related to pollution, population graphs, the biosphere lesson. So here also you can see it continues. And he also related to pollution with the graph. Always it starts with the diagram. So that is related to biosphere. You can understand that. Then if you see, if you go on, here you can see the space also provided to you where you need to write the answer and all that. Then if you look at the second question, you can see part A. Here you can see the plants given in the box. Pinus, coconut, like that, they have given plants. So then you know this is a biology related question. Anyway, you all are familiar with the format. Second question is biology related. In that, if you take part B, here you can see there is an activity that also you will understand it is a biology related question related to biomolecules. So question number 2, that is the part A question number 2 is a biology based question. Then if we move on, part C is also given there. That is the diagram of a cell. So obviously biology related question. Now these questions, the first question to fourth question, all of them contain a total of 15 marks. Each question is out of 15 marks. So in total it is out of 60 marks. Then if you look at the third question, you can see these are elements. The atomic structure with the energy levels, then the periodic table. So it's chemistry based question. Here also you can see the questions, a bond, then here also molecules are shown. So part A, part B, chemistry related question, third one. Then the fourth one, here you can see kilogram, Newton, acceleration, velocity, time graph. Then here you can see a balance, a pan balance, then another balance here, the flow balance. So all these are related to physics lessons. So you know the fourth question is a physics related question. All 4 questions are compulsory. You have to answer in the space provided and each question is marked out of 15. So in total it is out of 60 marks. Then we move on to part B. Here you can see part B again, the 5th question. It starts from 5 because part A contains the first 4 questions. 5 is again a biology question, usually from the systems and different biology lessons you get. So here you can see this is related to a system of the human body. So that has part A and B. Now these questions are out of 20 marks. If you completely answer all the parts, the total marks will be 20 if all answers are correct. But you will be answering 3 questions only. From 5, you need to answer 3 questions. Then 6th one, sodium hydroxide. So it is chemistry based question. Then you can see it continues. B part also, here you can see crude oil, naphtha. So all chemistry related question. Then question number 7, you can see glass block, an incident ray and all that. So denser medium, rare medium. You know this is an optics lesson. Then on this side, if you look at part B again, mass, the temperature, all that is given. So related to heat. So again, physics related question. So question number 7 is a physics related question. Then if you take question number 8, you will understand when you read the question, part A is biology related, whereas part B is physics. So question number 8 and question number 9, they are a mixture of different types of units. So then if I move on to the next one, here also you can see question number 9. This is chemistry part A, and part B is a physics lesson. So these are all combinations, question number 8 and question number 9. Up to that, the final question number 9 also is up to, the total is 20 marks. So question number 5 to 9, they are each out of 20 marks. So you will be answering 3 questions. So in total, they will be marked out of 60. So part A 60 marks, part B 60 marks. If you add them together, paper 2 is marked out of 120, but the marks is divided by 2 to get it out of 60. At the same time, paper 1 is marked out of 40. So paper 1 40 marks, paper 2 60 marks. Altogether, the total mark is out of 100. So that is the format of the paper. Now that you are familiar with that, I will move on to the next slide where I discuss the questions with you. So like I said, this is the first question of part A. So you're familiar with this also, students. Always the first question is related to biosphere. Pollution, the graphs, the biosphere lesson. So you're familiar with that. Question number 1, A part. The following diagram briefly indicates the ways by which air, soil and water are polluted. So how air, soil and water are polluted. So this is an environment given to you. There are different parts of the environment. They are all labeled. Now here at this part you can see a farmland. From the farmland, now before we discuss that, here you can see there are two types of arrows shown here. The light shaded arrow is the pollutants added to air, and the black color, dark colored arrow is the pollutants added to soil and water. So both are shown here. Now here you can see farmland. There is a black color arrow going to the reservoir. So you all know the agrochemicals can get into the reservoir. So that is a pollutant. At the same time, here you can see CH4, methane biogas is a gaseous pollutant going to the atmosphere. Then here you can see there is a mine. From the mine, you can see again there is an arrow going to the reservoir. From the mine, there are substances that are evolved, leached into water. Then from the forest also, you can see pollutants coming into the reservoir. Then here they have marked zone X. That is the forest zone. Above the forest, the atmosphere, it's marked as zone X. So we have a farmland, mine, forest. Above the forest, it's zone X. That is the atmosphere. Then here you can see a coal-fired power plant is shown here. From there, it is to the atmosphere. You can see CO2. Coal is carbon. When that is burned, CO2 is released. So that is released to the environment, very high amount. You can see the sizes of arrows are also different. Then there is SO2. Why in coal there is a certain amount of sulfur. So that also burns and that is released as SO2, sulfur dioxide. So coal-fired power plant. Then you can see the vehicles are shown here. From there as well as from this you can understand it is like a city area. In a urban area, a city area. From there, nitrogen oxides, NOx, because you all know nitrogen monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, NO, NO2. So we refer to it as NOx. So those are released from both vehicles and these households, the city area. Above that, they have marked the atmosphere as zone Y. That also you can see. At the same time, there is another arrow giving CO2 from the city area and also CFC, chlorofluorocarbon. Now from different equipments and other methods, CFC, chlorofluorocarbon, is also released from this city area. Then here you can see from the city area, from the households, the vehicles and the small houses here, huts-like structures, there is a river flowing. Into that there are different pollutants given into the water body. So from the river you can see everything flows into the ocean. Above the ocean, they have labeled the zone Z, that is again atmosphere. And here in the ocean, you can see there is the ship. From that, there can be oil spills, plastic wastage, and sewage water also can enter into that. All those are the information given in this particular diagram. I'm sure you all can understand that. So we have to answer the questions related to this diagram. Fill in the blanks in the table, selecting an example from the diagram relevant to each of the following statements. So, there is a table given, it's there on the next slide. Relevant to each of the statements, you have to select an example from the diagram. Now I'll move on to the question, the table. Here you can see the table, the smaller diagram is given there, so it's easy for us. Here you can see the statement is given. You have to write the example here. So the first one, the gas contributing most to the increase in global warming. Global warming is the effect of greenhouse effect. So greenhouse effect is caused by greenhouse gases. Now in this diagram, there are two greenhouse gases shown, carbon dioxide, even methane, CH4, that is also a greenhouse gas. But here the question, the gas contributing most to the increase in global warming. Mainly it is carbon dioxide. So that is what you need to write here. Mostly, so it's carbon dioxide. CO2, we can write CO2 or you can write carbon dioxide. So like I normally do, students, I am writing all the possible answers. You all can either give the chemical formula or you can write it in words. Either way is fine. Then the second one. The main source that releases the components causing eutrophication in the reservoir. Eutrophication is caused by nitrates and phosphates. You all know agrochemicals, excretory materials, all those cause or release these particular ions. So these ions can be released if you look at it. Now there are three sources that is giving pollutants into the reservoir. One is the farmland, then mine and forest. Now from the forest, of course, it's mostly natural environment. Mines, it's a coal mine. There are the substances, there are different pollutants. But if you take the farmland, now farmland, it's a lot of organic waste materials. Now from the organic waste materials, there are substances, nitrates and phosphates added to the reservoir which cause eutrophication. So because of that, the main source that releases the components causing eutrophication in the reservoir, agrochemicals and even organic waste material. So that is farmland. Then the third one, gaseous organic compound that depletes the ozone layer. Now out of all these, if you look at it, you can see here CFC, chlorofluorocarbon, is mainly involved in the depletion of ozone layer. So it is a gaseous organic compound. It has to be an organic compound also. Now out of all the compounds given, only methane and CFC are organic compounds. And out of that, CFC, chlorofluorocarbon, is the one that contributes to ozone depletion. So here again we can write it as CFC or you can write as chlorofluorocarbon. You can just write it as CFC or you can write it as chlorofluorocarbon. Is that clear, students? Then the fourth one, the zone most prone to have photochemical smog. Now photochemical smog is caused by the effluents from fuel combustion, mostly from vehicles. The vehicle effluents, they enter the environment and with the gases in the environment, they form the photochemical smog. So mostly, can you all see now zone X is above the forest. So that is actually a natural environment. Above that, the atmosphere would be the cleanest out of all these. Then you can see zone Y, the city environment where you have vehicles, a lot of city, the houses, buildings, vehicles. So there is a lot of combustion of fuel. So that area has a high chance of photochemical smog. Then again, zone Z, of course, it is above the ocean. Only the ships, the amount of products of combustion that are released over the zone is also less. So the zone most prone to have photochemical smog is zone Y. So here the answer will be zone Y. Or you can just write Y. Or you can just write it as Y. That is fine. As long as that letter is given, it's fine. So these are the answers for the first 4 statements. With that, I'll move on to the next part. The source producing gases which cause acid rains. Now, you all know, students, normally in the environment there is carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, as well as there is a certain amount of nitrogen oxides that is due to lightning. Nitrogen reacts with oxygen during lightning. So at that time also the rain is slightly acidic. But mainly from various sources is sulfur dioxide is added to the environment that can again be converted to sulfur trioxide. These gases, sulfur dioxide, sulfur trioxide, in addition to that the nitrogen oxide, nitrogen dioxide, all of them when they are in high amount, they easily dissolve in water and they cause acid rain. So if you look at the sources that can evolve all these. Now here you can see whole coal-fired power plant, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide. So that releases gases that cause acid rain. Then here you can see the city area from the vehicles also. There is nitrogen dioxide released. At the same time, carbon dioxide is also released. Then from different industries, there is carbon dioxide released. So you can write any of those answers. So here what I will do is I will write it as power plant. Power plant. I will write vehicles. Then there is industries. So you can write any one of these 3. Is that clear, students? From the power plant, or you can write it as coal-fired power plant, vehicles, industries. So from all those there is carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide and oxides of nitrogen released. So out of those mainly sulfur dioxide and NOx, they cause acid rain. So you can write any one answer. Is that clear, students? So then, the 6th one, the source that adds ground heavy metals to top soil. Now from all these heavy metals, what are the heavy metals? Arsenic, cadmium, then there is the mercury, all these are heavy metals. Even from fluorescent lamps you get mercury. But here the question is the source that adds ground heavy metals to top soil. These are all going to the environment. But here you have to find the source that adds ground heavy metals to topsoil. So if you look at the diagram, you can see from the mine there are substances evolved that has heavy metals. So that is a source that adds heavy metals to ground topsoil. So that is the mine. From the mine, heavy metals are added to topsoil. Then the last part of the question, 7th one, the pollutant accumulated in living organisms through food chains and subjected to the minimum chemical digestion in the digestive system. So minimum digestion in the digestive system, and also they accumulate through the food chain. So those are the bioaccumulated substances. They are non-degradable normally. What are they? It can be either heavy metals or else even plastic waste. You all know plastic waste, when you dump them, they get converted to another chemical which can accumulate through the food chain. So the plastic waste. Plastic waste. Is that clear, students? So with that, I'll move on to the next slide. So this is part B. Now part B, in a certain area, a study was conducted about soil pollution. So you know the first question is related to pollution, part A and part B. In this study, soil samples were collected monthly from a selected site and their physical properties, density, moisture content, electrical conductivity and pH value were determined and plotted. Answer the following questions based on the above graphs. So here you can see the graph, students. Now in that, the physical properties of soil is given. They have not given a specific unit, and here the month is given starting from January to August. And on this side, here you can see, since they have given 4 different graphs, I have colored it also. The graphs are colored. The X mark is for pH value. So there is no unit. You all know pH values from 1 to 14. Then the second graph, this one with the triangle shape, that is the electrical conductivity, that is given as microsiemens per centimeter. Siemens is the unit, standard units for conductivity. So here it is in microsiemens per centimeter. Electrical conductivity. Then the squares, red color here, it is the square moisture content, that is given as percentage. So that is out of 100, the percentage. That is this graph. Then you can see here the last graph is for density, that is in grams per centimeter cube. So then if you look at the graphs, you can see the pH graph has a certain order where it shows a high value there, then it doesn't change towards the end, but it varies, increases and decreases. Here you can see the variation is, it decreases gradually starting from January to July. Then if you look at the third one, that is moisture content, that again fluctuates, increases, decreases. Here you can see 2 months it's the same value. February and May same value, June is a very low value. Like that you can see the variation. Then you can see the last graph, density, again there is variation. In March it shows the highest value, and here June it is the low value, but it's not a very huge variation. Even January is somewhat low. There is a slight variation. Like that you can see all the changes. So you have to look at the change, you have to look at the units when you answer the questions. Is that clear, students? So with that, I'll move on to the questions. Here you can see the same graph is given, so you can answer based on that. First one, according to the density graph, what was the maximum density value reported? Maximum density value. What is the density graph? Here you can see the blue color one. Here it is colored, but in your paper it will not be colored, this particular diamond shape. So if you look at it, highest density, you need to give the maximum density. Look at the values. Now this part in March has the maximum density. The value is 1, but it has to be in grams per centimeter cube. So when you write the answer, we have to write it as 1 gram per centimeter cube. You have to give the correct unit. I told you all, here they haven't put the unit because there are 4 different graphs with 4 different units, either no unit or different units. Then, second one, in which month was the moisture content at a minimum value? Moisture content is this graph with the squares. Minimum value, so you can see here, this is the minimum value, that is in June. They have asked for the month, so you need to write the month as June. Is that okay? So here of course you are getting information from the graph. Then the next part, part 3, same graph and information. How much is the amount of moisture contained in 100 gram of the soil sample collected in April? So moisture content, again the squares, it is given in percentage. So in April, this is the value 2. Now 2 is 2%. If it is 2%, that means if you take 100 grams, there will be 2 grams. That is the meaning of 2%, no? Into 100. Then only you get the value as 2%. So here the question is, how much is the amount of moisture contained in 100 gram of the soil sample collected in April? So when it is 2%, if you get 100 parts, there will be 2. So if you take 100 grams, there will be 2 grams of moisture. So when you write the answer, you have to write it as 2 grams. That is very important. Don't just write 2 or 2%. It has to be 2 grams because the question is in 100 gram of the soil sample. Is that clear, students? So then, the fourth one. In which time range had the soil pH stayed constant? Soil pH. pH is the first graph. Here you can see cross. Which period? From June to July. You can see it is a constant. So you can say June, July period. Is that okay? So getting information from the graph regarding soil. Then the next one, again the same graph is given to you. The fifth part of the question, which physical property shows a continuous decrease during the period of data collection? That I mentioned to you all. This particular property. What is that? It is the electrical conductivity. So that is what you need to write here. Electrical conductivity. Electrical conductivity. Is that correct? Then, sixth one. Which physical properties shown in the graph are determined by the amount of ionic components present in the soil? Now you can see pH, electrical conductivity, moisture content, density. Now pH depends on H plus and OH minus ions. Whereas electrical conductivity, it depends on free ions. If there are more free ions, electrical conductivity is more. No free ions or less free ions, electrical conductivity is less. Then moisture content, of course, it is the water content. Then density is the density depending on all the components. Mass per unit volume. So the two factors or physical properties shown in the graph are determined by the amount of ionic components. It is mainly the electrical conductivity. So that is what you need to write here. Electrical conductivity. In addition to that, like I said, we can also write pH as well, because that also depends on the ion. So like I said, H plus and OH minus ion. So it depends on ionic compound. Is that clear? So since they have asked physical properties, you have to write both of them. Is that clear? So with that, I'll move on to the next question. Again, the same graph and information. The seventh one, in August, on the days immediately before the sample collecting day, acid rains fell on the above area. Accordingly, of the points A, B, C and D, the pH value corresponding to which point would be the most probable soil pH value relevant to that month. So here there are points marked as A, B, C and D. Now the physical property, if we start from 1 to 10, you all know pH values. 7 is neutral at 25 degrees Celsius. Below that, 1 to 6 is acidic, and that also, if it is closer to 1, lower value, strong acid. Closer to the neutral region, it is weak acid. Then after the neutral region, it is weak bases. And when you go closer to 14, it is strong bases. Now here, acid rain, it is acidic, so it has to be less than 7. And also it can't be really strong acidic. So it has to be a weak acid region. Although the acids in acid rain are sulfuric acid, sulfurous acid, nitric acid and all that, the amount of acid, the concentration is less. So because of that, the pH will be somewhat in the weak acid region. So if you look at the values, now A is 10, basic pH. B is 8, that is also basic pH. C is 5 and D is 1. So C and D are acidic pH values, but like I said, 1 is a very strong acid. Then of course the pollution is very high. It will be just acid as raining. So that is not possible. It is C, that is pH 5. So you have to write A, B, C and D, the pH value corresponding to which point would be the most probable soil pH value relevant to that month. It will be C, point C or C. Is that clear, student? So you have to look at the graph and you have to relate it to various information. So with that, students, I have completed the first structured question. Now you saw it had part A, part B, both related to pollution. I'm going to move on to the second question of part A of the second paper. Then question number 2, A part. Now you all know the second question of part A of the second paper is also a biology related question. So you can see that here. If you read the question, from the plants given in the box, select a plant which is an example for each of the following statements and write it on the dotted line opposite each. So you have to select one example. Select a plant which is an example. So one example, if you look at the plants, pinus, coconut, jack, paddy, markantia, or markantia, then acalifa is Cupamania or Cupamani, then cycas and pogonatum. So these are the different types of plants. Now you all know under domain Eukarya we have kingdom Plantae. Kingdom Plantae is mainly divided based on flowering and non-flowering abilities. So non-flowering plants are the less advanced plants, flowering plants are the more advanced plants, the angiosperms. Then the non-flowering plants are divided into two types, the seedless non-flowering plants and seeded non-flowering plants. So if you look at all these, you can see markantia and pogonatum, they come under seedless non-flowering plants or non-flowering plants without seeds. Then pinus and cycas, they have seeds, they are non-flowering, they have a seed, but the seed is not covered by a fruit. That's why we call them as naked seeded plants. That is gymnosperms. Then the rest are all angiosperms. Angiosperms are further divided as monocots and dicots, or monocotyledonous plants and dicotyledonous plants. Coconut and paddy, they are monocots. Jack and acalifa, both are dicot plants. I'm sure you can remember all that. So with that, if we look at the plants, type of plants. First one, a non-flowering plant without seeds. Non-flowering plant without seeds. So there you have to select the non-flowering plant without seed, means it has to be markantia or pogonat. So there it should be markantia or pogonata. Now here students, I am writing both the answers. You all need to write only one example. Then the second one, a non-flowering plant with seeds. So non-flowering plants with seeds, pinus and cycas. Pinus or cycas. You can write one of the two. Then the third one, a monocotyledonous flowering plant. So I told you all coconut paddy. So you can write one, coconut paddy. Then there is the fourth one, a dicotyledonous flowering plant. Dicotyledonous flowering plant, it has to be either jack or acalifa. Jack or acalifa. Acalipa indica is Acalipa is Cupamania or Cupamani. Since they have given the other two names, you can write them as well. Or you can just write it as Acalipa. Is that okay? So, answers, I have given all the possible answers, two types each, two plants each. You need to write one plant for each one. Is that clear, students? So, with that, I'll move on to the next question. The next part, that is part B. In order to demonstrate the action of the enzyme amylase on starch during the process of digestion of food, A mixture was made by adding starch and amylase to water. So you all know starch is a polysaccharide made up of glucose units and amylase is an enzyme. Salivary amylase is an enzyme or amylase that converts starch to maltose. So that is the activity. The mixture was placed in a water bath at temperature 37 degrees Celsius. 37 degrees Celsius, our body temperature is around 37 degrees Celsius. And that is the optimum temperature for the activity of enzymes. They are biological catalysts. They are very active. Optimum temperature is 37, related closer to 37 degrees Celsius. That is why we need a water bath to provide that particular temperature. After 5 minutes, a drop from the mixture was taken out. A drop of iodine solution was added to it and the color was observed. Normally, you all know iodine solution is used to observe or test the presence of starch. Iodine solution is a brown color solution that gives a dark blue or dark purple, blackish blue color in the presence of starch. So that is why we do that test. The above test was repeated at times given in the following table. The color observed in each instance is shown in the table. The colors that were observed is shown in the table. So here time is given in minutes and color observed. 5 minutes violet, blue. That means there is starch. Then 15 minutes blue. 25 minutes blue. So there is still starch, but you can see from violet blue it has become blue. That means the amount of starch has decreased gradually. Then 35 minutes yellow brown. Yellow brown is the color of iodine. So that means there is no starch. Then 45 also they confirm that there is no starch. That again is yellow brown. So up to this point there is starch. 35 minutes there is no starch. So that means all the starch has been converted to maltose by amylase enzyme. So that is to show the activity of enzyme. So action of enzyme amylase. Is that clear? So related to that, if we answer the questions, the first one, what is the compound formed by the action of amylase on starch in the aqueous medium? So like I said, starch is converted to maltose, which is an intermediate product. Then thereafter maltose is converted to glucose by maltase. You all know that. So here the answer should be maltose. Maltose is a disaccharide that is an intermediate product of the digestion of starch. When amylase enzyme acts on starch, it produces maltose. Is that clear, student? So with that, I'll move on to the next part. That is the second part. The same introduction and the table is given. Give the reason for the following observations. A part, appearance of blue color after 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, there is blue color. That means there is starch. So here you have to write the answer as there is starch in the mixture. Or if you just write it as there is starch or starch is still present. If you write that, that is enough. Then B part, appearance of yellow-brown color after 35 minutes. That means there is no starch, or you can see starch has been converted to maltose. You can just say there is no starch. That is more than enough. There is no starch in the mixture. Is that clear, student? So, important thing, you have to say there is starch, that is why brown color appears. There is no starch, that is why there is no appearance of brown color. It remains yellow-brown, the color of iodine itself. Is that clear, students? So, with that, I'll move on to the next part. Part 3. Why is the mixture subjected to the experiment kept in a water bath at 37 degrees Celsius? I already told you all that is the optimum temperature for enzyme activity. So we can say to provide optimum temperature for enzyme activity. So you can say enzyme activity or activity of amylase or activity of enzyme, that is fine. But you need to say to provide the optimum temperature or the ideal temperature for the activity of enzyme. Is that clear? So that is the answer for the third one. Then the fourth one, which component does not undergo a chemical change though contributes to the chemical reaction pertaining to the above experiment? Which component does not undergo a chemical change though contributes to the chemical reaction pertaining to the above experiment? So in the above experiment, starch is converted to maltose. That is catalyzed by the biological catalyst, that's the enzyme amylase. Now enzymes, they do not undergo a chemical change. They remain as the same. After the completion of the reaction, enzymes remain the same. The mass also does not change. So that means they do not undergo chemical change, but they contribute to the chemical reaction. So that is amylase. So here we have to say amylase, or you can say amylase enzyme, or you can even say enzyme. Since they have asked what is the component, so amylase enzyme or enzyme. I'm sure you all can understand that. Enzymes increase the rate of reaction. They do participate in the reaction, but they are not consumed after the reaction. Same as catalysts. Enzymes are biological catalysts. That you can remember. So with that, students, I'll move on to the next question, or the next. That is part C. So this question had part A, part B and part C. So part C, given below is a diagram of a typical plant cell drawn based on the electron microscopic observation. So you know what a typical cell is. Typical cell includes all the possible organelles and structures that can be present in a plant cell. That is here because it's a typical plant cell. And it is observed through the electron microscope. Or even the very small structures and organelles can be observed through the electron microscope. So you know that. Then you can see this structure which is labeled as part B. You can identify it is the cell wall. Plant cells have a cell wall. And inside that you can see what is labeled as Q is the cell membrane or the plasma membrane. Then here you can see S is the large vacuole, S. Then here you can see the mitochondrions, they are labeled. Then R you can see is the nucleus. A large nucleus with the ribosomes, the nuclear envelope, the endoplasmic reticulum with the ribosomes attached to that, all that is shown. And here inside you can see the nucleolus also. So that is R is the nucleus. Then here you can see another structure, chloroplast. So then here you can see what is labeled as T is the membrane bound sac-like structures with the vesicles, that is the Golgi body or the Golgi complex. So you can identify all the structures and organelles given there. Then the first question based on that, you can see by which letter is the structure that helps to maintain the shape of plant cells named. Plant cells, the shape is maintained by P, the cell wall. So here we can write P. By which letter is the structure that helps to maintain the shape of plant cells named P? You can also write it as cell wall, but since they have asked for the letter, it is always better to write that P. But they did take the answer cell wall also. They did accept it. But here the question says by which letter. So that is P. Is that clear, student? So with that, the next part. Second part, the same diagram is given to you. Write the names of the organelles labeled Q and T in the relevant boxes. Now Q, like I showed you all, is the cell membrane or plasma membrane. So you can write it as cell membrane I'll write the other answer outside. Now you will be writing only one answer, no? So no problem for you all. Plasma membrane. Plasma membrane. Then on this side, T, like I said, Golgi complex, or you can write Golgi body. Golgi complex or Golgi body. So you need to write the names inside the box given. Is that clear, students? So with that, the next part, part 3. By what letter is the organelle that can also be identified when observed under the optical microscope labeled? Optical microscope, you can see the cell wall. You can see the nucleus, R. And also you can see S, the central vacuole. So you can write any of those letters. P, you can write, then you can write R, or you can write S. You can write any one of those answers. Is that clear, students? So with that, I'm going to move on to the next one. Then the fourth one, state the function carried out by the following organelles. So there they have given A, chloroplast. What is the function? Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. Chloroplast contains the chlorophyll, so that is photosynthesis. Then mitochondrion. Mitochondrion, that is aerobic respiration or cellular respiration, production of energy. You can write any one of those. Aerobic respiration, or cellular respiration. Cellular respiration or producing energy. You can write any one of the answers. So these are the functions, students. Chloroplast, photosynthesis, or else you can even write production of food. Production of food. Then mitochondrion, like I have written, aerobic respiration, cellular respiration, or producing energy. Here I have written all the possible answers. You can write any one answer. Photosynthesis or production of food for chloroplast, and one of the three for mitochondrion. So with that, students, I have completed the second question of part A of paper 2 of the O-Level 2021 paper. With that, I am going to end this chapter, and in the next chapter, I will discuss the rest of the questions of paper 2.
To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.